Welcome to Innovative Pilates. We're going to do a stretch flexibility with some strengthening routine. So for this you're going to need a roll towel. It can be as thick or as thin as you like. I'll tell you more when we get to that exercise. And you might want if you've got a yoga belt or a dressing gown belt or something like that. So I'll do a quick warm-up, so come and join me in standing to start off with. So we're going to do what's called a general body warm-up. So stand with your feet hip distance. Extend your arms above your head, so you take a nice deep breath in. As you exhale, bend your knees, bring your hands behind you, and once again extend your legs. Bend the knees to bring the arms forward and reach up to the ceiling. So exhaling and inhaling. So warming up, shoulders, knees, hips, ankles, giving the hamstrings a little stretch. Inhaling and exhaling. So just take your time to breathe and just center and focus yourself here on your mat. Or a bit of rug or whatever you're working on today. Pause here with your arms extended in front of you. We're going to take some arm openings, so take a breath here. As you exhale, open one arm to the back of the room and follow your arm with your eyes. Going from right to left, finding a nice twist through the spine. So your aim is to try and keep the hips fairly still. And again, flow with your breath. It doesn't really matter if you inhale for half and then exhale, or if you exhale first and then inhale. It doesn't really matter. But this will be quite nice for your thoracic rotation, some nice shoulder openings. And then bring your arms down by your side and just come into some side bends, nice easy side bends. Keeping your weight equal between your feet. So try and avoid transferring your weight. You can reach your elbow up, or you can reach your arm up and fully extend, depending on how the shoulder's feeling. We'll do one more. Bring your hands onto your hips and just part your feet slightly wider, just to draw some circles with your pelvis. So take a few pelvic circles in one direction, and then pause and reverse your circles. And then just to finish off, we'll come and warm up through the legs. So let the heels rise and then alternate the heel drop. So as one heel rises, that knee comes forward, the other side, the heel drops to the floor. So take this time to work your feet as well. So try and get the work into your toe joints. Just alternating one side then the other. Okay, well done. Okay, let's come on to your left side and just see how your balance is this morning or this evening, whenever you're doing this video. Just go and balance on one leg. Maybe time yourself for 30 seconds. See if you can balance quietly without falling over. If you can balance quite nicely, lots you can do to challenge your balance next time you come and balance. You can draw some circles with your free leg. You can draw some circles with your arms. Be creative. You can look over your shoulders, moving your head and neck. You could even be very daring and close one eye, the other eye, or both eyes together. So when you practice your balance, just vary what you're doing with your balance. So if you've got your eyes closed, open the eyes again. Let's come into some squats. So take your feet just slightly wider than hip distance. Just some nice easy squats. So make sure you're weight bearing through the whole of both feet equally, from the tips of the toes to the heels. Inhaling and exhaling as you move. So allowing the arms to come forwards and backwards as you send your hips back and down can just help counterbalance. So we're trying to get movement in your ankles, knees and hips. And remember, when you do squats, if you do squats on a regular basis, you can vary the squats, the position of your feet, the turnout of your legs. So you can go anywhere from having the feet together and doing very narrow squats to very wide squats. So each time you come and practice squats, take a different variation. This one's quite a nice variation for opening up the hip joints. Let's take a couple more. And then we're going to come down onto the mat. So the first sort of mobility exercise we're going to do is for your hip joints. It's called 90-90, and there are plenty of videos out there on this exercise. So you start with your knees at about 90 degrees and your feet wide. And then just take a small lean back, so don't try and lean too far back, only as much as you need to. We're just going to let the right knee, if you're mirroring me, might be your left knee, that's fine. Just let that knee drop across and then open. And I'm trying to keep the weight underneath my pelvis into my sitting bones equal, so there is no rotation through the waist and the low back. Let's come over onto the other side and just compare. So if you know one hip's getting a little bit stiff, perhaps start with that hip, then do the other side and then come back to the stiffer side. So that's always one way you can approach. Okay, so when we've done a little bit of a warm up through both hip joints, notice I'm digging my heels in as well and pulling the toes up towards me. Then we can start kind of windscreen wipering. So I've still got my sitting bones equally weighted. Just allow one knee to drop in, one knee to drop out, both as far as they'll go on each side. You can do this with the hands off the floor just to get a little bit more work through your tummy muscles. Then we're going to now drop both knees in one direction. Let your body follow, so you end up in this 90-90 position. So I am looking, from my pelvis, I'm looking down the length of my thigh bone, and then my knee is coming off at 90 degrees. My back thigh is in line with my shin on my front leg, and then this back leg, the shin's going off at 90 degrees. You should have like this square here. From there you can lean forward and hopefully you'll feel a stretch into the bottom on this underneath leg. So you can hold that here. Now if you lean towards the knee, you'll get a nice stretch. You'll get a stronger stretch if you lean towards your shin and your foot. So come and lean forward into a position that feels a nice stretch for you and just hold it. Take a few breaths there. Now if this is quite an important stretch for you and you think this would be very beneficial, you can always pause the video and just hold the stretch for a little bit longer. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is come and sit upright. So you're still looking down the length of your thigh. Now we're going to look at your back hip here and you're going to drop the pelvis towards the floor. So notice how that's rotated my body now. So I'm looking a little bit more down the length of my back thigh. Now I'm feeling quite a nice stretch into the actual joint itself. So we're looking at what's called internal rotation, so the ability of you to roll your hip in. This front leg is rolling out, so external rotation and internal rotation. To change legs, if you again pull the toes up towards you, dig the heels in, lean back onto your hands and come back to the start position, and then immediately just roll over onto the other side. So the feet really shouldn't have moved at all. Just make any little adjustments you need to try and get this square between your heel and your knee. Should be the distance of your thigh, the length of your thigh. Lean forward, find the stretch into the underneath bottom muscle. Again, pause and hold for a little bit longer than we're going to today. So as a rule of thumb, somewhere up to a minute, 45 seconds to a minute would be ideal. This is going to make a very long video if I do that with each stretch. So again, if this is important to you and you think this would be very beneficial, take that time yourself. So pause the video and stretch. Now what we do is sit up, drop the back hip, and you'll find that internal rotation. Hold it there. So feel that, like I say, I feel this quite strongly into my kind of the groin, the hip joint area. So find that stretch there. If there's a big difference between one side and the other, again, perhaps do the tighter side first, do the other side, and then come back and do the tighter side again. Okay, so we're going to come and sit with the legs out in front. You can always prop, got your towel there, so you can always fold that so you can make a little lift for your bottom if sitting with your legs out is uncomfortable. You can always bend your knees slightly. So let's cross, let's say for example we're going to cross the left leg over the right leg. Now if this isn't a good comfortable position for you, you can always have your foot flat to the inside of your other leg. So either foot flat in line with your hip or cross the leg over, whatever feels nice for you. We're going to take a twist, so we're going to take a rotation through the upper body. Use this hand to help pull you round. Use this hand at the back to help lengthen your spine. So try and straighten the spine as much as you can. Relax your shoulders and neck. Wrap this arm round at whatever point feels comfortable. If you can get the elbow around the knee joint and pull the knee across your body, if that feels okay, into your hips. You can also get a bit of a stretch into that buttock again. So height and rotation are important here. Two key things. Take a few more breaths here. Nice big breaths, really kind of mobilising the rib cage. And then release. So I'll deliberately stay facing this way. So you can either bring the foot in or cross the foot over. Wrap the arm around, bring the other hand behind. And again, try and lengthen the spine so you feel that your chest and your head are in line with your pelvis. Use the arm to help create a bit more twist. Use the hand behind you to create the length and the height through the spine. You can either keep your neck out of the stretch or you can look over your shoulder to help just mobilise the neck a little. So from there, release. Come and lie down. Maybe you need a little pillow or two. Perhaps use your towel again. You can always fold your towel up and create the right amount of height. When you lie down, you roughly want your forehead and your chin in line with each other. So I'm going to bring the feet and knees together, take the arms out and turn the palms up. So keeping the knees and feet glued together, let your knees drop to one side. Your eyes can gaze in the other direction. Try and keep the opposite shoulder blade down. Use your arms a bit like a kickstands of a bike to keep your chest facing the ceiling as much as you can as you let your hips twist. Keep your top foot stacked on your underneath foot and your top knee stacked on your underneath knee. Try and relax into that. If you can't relax into that, another towel just to support your thighs can be quite nice. Maybe you can relax onto that. Let's take the twist the other way. So pull back with the rib cage, the waist, the pelvis. And then let the knees drop. Your head in the opposite direction. So there's two ways you can approach this exercise. You can hold these stretches, just soften the rib cage down here. You can hold these stretches as I'm demonstrating now. Or you can vary it and do it as a sort of a bit more of a mobilising exercise where you literally touch on the edge of the stretch and then immediately pull back ribs, waist, pelvis, wake up your waist muscles, and it's a nice one for toning as well as mobilising your waist muscles. Okay, so let's come up from there. Come onto your hands and knees. So wrists underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips. So find a nice neutral lengthened spine, and we're going to work the back muscles. So first of all, push the floor away quite strongly and just slide your toes along your mat. So if you keep the toes on the floor initially, try and the pelvis level to the floor and just lock out your knee joints, then when you lift your back leg, try and avoid bending the knee. So nice, strong, straight leg. Strong with the upper body. You can keep both hands on the floor or you can float your opposite arm. So I've got my right leg extended and now my left hand. Replace. Slide your left leg back. Lock out the knee joint, lift. Feel your hamstrings, your glutes. Push the floor away. And then again, just float the opposite arm. You don't have to overextend this arm, particularly if you find you end up hunching your shoulder up to your ears. It can just be a small lift, it doesn't have to be a big lift. And in your own time, change from one side to the other. So this is not just a strengthening exercise for the back of the body, you're also going to be pushing the floor away quite strongly, drawing your chin towards your throat space, so avoid the head dropping to the floor. And just in your own time, change from one side to the other. Pause just for a second each side and then change back. Keep a little bit of distance between the shoulders and the ears. Keep everything else nice and relaxed and not creating tension anywhere else. Variations here, we can tap and lift the leg. Get a little bit of strength into the standing arm. Change and do the other side. Lift and lower. Well done. Okay, let's take a nice big step forward with one leg. Now we can bring the hands up onto your front thigh. You can bring the hands down onto some blocks or books if you can't quite reach the floor, if the hips are tight. So you may feel all sorts of stretching sensations going on in the front leg. You're going to be getting some nice hip flexion on this front leg. You're also at the same time going to get a bit of a stretch into the front of your back leg. Bring the hands either side, a bit more comfortable perhaps to bring your hands to the inside of your front foot. And then try and allow the hips to drop forward. If you're up here, little pelvic tuck. So if you tuck your hips under, that's going to bring a much stronger stretch into the front of your hip. So you can always get a little stack of books and place them underneath your hands. Okay, so holding your nice deep lunge there. Let's go on to the other side. So step forward. You want as much distance as you can tolerate between your front heel and your back knee. Again, tuck the hips under and lengthen the spine. So the key thing here is to make sure you're not overly rounded. So when trying to reach the floor, if you're really rounding your spine, that's when you'd have some blocks and then you can lengthen your upper body. So a good stack of cookbooks, quite handy. Again, find that stretch into the front of the hip and then you're feeling that work into your hip, front of your hip on the other side. Let's come into a frog stretch. So a nice stretch, nice mobilising for your hips again. So you take your knees as far apart as you feel comfortable to. So it's a good inner thigh stretch. You can stay up on your hands or you can come down onto your forearms. With the feet, if you can keep the feet in line with your knees, so if you were to look back, your shins are parallel with each other. It's not the end of the world if your feet are coming, you can see, if your feet are coming in, that's fine as well, but you do get a better stretch if the feet are in line with your knees. And then just gently encourage your hips back, your pelvis back to the floor. So I'm getting a really nice stretch here. And as I say, you can come down onto your forearms. That's going to give you a bigger stretch again. Now the other thing that can tweak this exercise quite nicely is again adding a little bit of an anterior and posterior pelvic tilt. Notice when the hips come forward, the pelvis reaches up and back. You get a kind of a slightly stronger stretch there. Okay, so again, a good minute would be preferable. So pause if that's a nice stretch for you. Do that a little bit longer. Okay, so now we're going to look for a stretch for the upper back and the arms. So should you be struggling to get your arms above your head, this is a nice one for that. So keeping your hips roughly in line with your knees here, just take the hands forward as far as you feel comfortable to. Once you've reached that point, try and allow your chest to drop towards the floor. If you can't quite rest your forehead on the mat, then again, just get a book or two and just rest your forehead on the mat there. So here, once you've found your position of rest, you're reaching your fingertips forward, your hips back. So you're trying to create a sense of length through your spine. So I'm getting a nice stretch into the sort of the latissimus dorsi area, and I'm also feeling a nice sort of mobilising in the upper back. So just hold and breathe into the side ribs is quite nice here. So if you take some nice breaths, breathing into the side body, expanding the rib cage, left to right, right to left. So make this as nice a stretch as you can. Use some support underneath your head. You don't have to get your upper body so far down. If you're here and feeling a stretch, that's great too. Okay, so then we're going to come down onto your tummy and do some back bending. Now I quite like to break my back up into 3 areas. So from the base of the neck, you have your upper back, your mid back and your low back. If you have your hands forward, when you lift your upper body and pull the upper body forward, you're possibly, hopefully going to feel that a little bit higher up your spine into your kind of upper back. So you can hold, or again you can lift, pull the chest forward and then lower. Now if this region of your upper back is stiff, try not to compensate by overextending your neck. If you have a sense of your chin down towards your chest as you pull your chest forward, finding length in your upper body. And then bring the hands a little bit closer. Now if I push into my hands, pull forward, I'm now feeling this more into the middle of my back. So if that's an area that's stiff for you, just play around with your hand position. It works for me, so generally for above my head, we'll get my higher up in my back, a little bit closer, mid-back, and then if you bring the hands underneath the shoulders when you come up, you'll feel this more into your low back. Now when you come up into the low back region, if you think about just pressing a posterior tilt, so pressing your pubic bone into the front of the mat, just engages your bottom muscles a little bit, and then just have this awareness of a sort of a scooping up of your tummy muscles, and then that should feel really nice into the low back. So I'm not dumping into my low back. Now keeping my hands where they are, if I pull my chest forward, I can feel that work all the way from the base of my neck nice and relaxed, shoulders nice and relaxed, all the way to my pelvis. And you can lengthen your spine as you come down, lengthen your spine as you come up. So again, you can do holds, or you can come up and down. So let's come back onto your hands and knees. Tuck your toes under. You might take your socks off. We're going to do a little bit of strengthening through the front body. So with toes tucked under, press into the hands, try and find this nice S shape through your spine and then hover your knees. You don't have to hover for long. If you can just create a bit of space between your knees and the mat, even for a split second, then you're going to be working through your shoulders, your tummy muscles and your legs. Now this is also a really nice opportunity to tuck the toes under and get some mobility in the toes, because very often our toes get stiff and we lose the ability to tuck them under. If you've got stiff toes, you can do this with your feet against the wall. Press the feet into the wall and have a go with that one. Okay, so extend your right leg back. Push into your right toes, into both hands, and then see if you can hover your left knee. So just a nice way to start progressing and strengthening yourself into a full plank. Here I'm just doing lifts and lowers. You could always add a hold. And then I'm going to come on to the other side again. So tuck the left toes under, push and see if you can hover your right knee. Now notice I'm hopefully not over rounding or rounding my upper back much at all. I'm trying to stay in that nice S shape that I started with. Now if you want to tuck both sets of toes under and step both of your legs back, again, a bit more work in the upper body, a lot more work in your tummy muscles, and you start to feel your thigh muscles as well. Tuck the toes under as much as you can, push the heels back, press the floor away, and press, encouraging the back of your head and neck to the ceiling, again, so you don't end up rounded in the upper body with your head falling towards the floor. So just draw your chin towards your throat space. You can come in and out of that as much as you like. You can time yourself if you want to, perhaps challenge yourself up to 30 seconds, maybe even up to a minute. So just give your wrists a little wiggle. And then I'm just going to do a couple more on your back again. So another strengthening one is your shoulder bridge. You bring your heels in towards your bottom. You want your feet and knees about hip distance. And then just relax your arms on the floor, just tuck the shoulder blades under slightly. So try and lift your pelvis when you come into a shoulder bridge. So hopefully here you can see I'm in a straight line from my shoulders, pelvis to knees. Try and avoid lifting with your rib cage. If you thrust the bottom of the ribs up, you can see that's coming into my low back. So softening the rib cage down to the mat, so you can feel you've got much more weight going through your upper body, and then a little posterior tilt, so tucking the hips under gets you that juicy work in your glutes, not into your back. Again, as always, you can do some lifts and lowers, so push into the feet. Feel the lift of the pelvis coming from your bottom muscles, so your main hip extensors, you're effectively extending the hips, you're opening up the front of the hips, and that should mostly come from your glutes. You may have an awareness of your back muscles, you may have an awareness of your hamstrings, and that's all lovely too. You may also have an awareness of a bit of a stretch, a bit of lengthening at the fronts of your hips and thighs. Keep the weight into the big toe, into the inner borders of your feet, rather than allowing the knees to open wide. Press and hold. Relax your shoulders, your neck, and just feel that you're hanging out here using your bottom muscles. Now, if hamstrings is something you're wanting to strengthen, then just have your feet further forward. Now, if you've got stiff knees and you can't bring your heels in, you will notice as you press into your feet, again, keeping the ribs down, it might feel a lot stronger into your hamstrings. And that's okay too. If you get back pain at all, pressing out into a band, I haven't got one here, but if you've got a yoga belt that's you can make a loop with, or you've got those elasticated bands, if you place your legs in between into the circle of the band and press out, particularly if you can't lift your hips without perhaps a little bit of back pain, pressing out into some elastic, the elastic bands or TheraBands can really help with that, or pushing out as I am here into my yoga belt. That can be quite nice too. All sorts of variations with shoulder bridge. You can reach your arms above your head and take a good stretch there. Just be careful that doesn't encourage you to flare your ribs. So you have to work even more strongly to keep your rib cage down. So rolling up and down can be quite a nice variation of your shoulder bridge too. Okay, so after you've done your shoulder bridge, just hug your knees in towards your chest, take a little rock and roll there. So if both knees in towards your chest isn't accessible, then you can always just do one knee at a time. And then the last one for this session is using our towel. Now this, as I said, can be a very small kind of sausage shape, or it can be quite a thick. It's going to go down the length of your spine from the base of your neck. So it's going to kind of go behind your breastbone. And we're just going to try and encourage a back bend there. Now try and make it the height so that when you lengthen back over it, your head can comfortably find the floor. You can always use another towel underneath your head, folded to the height that makes it comfortable for you. Now if you bring the soles of your feet together, let the knees open wide, the arms can come out in a T shape, or the elbows can bend and your arms can be in an L shape. This is a really nice position to finish your practice in. You can close your eyes. You just want to feel a little stretch, a little opening through the front of your chest, front of your shoulders. The leg position does not have to be the one I have chosen today. You can just extend the legs out. You can have the knees bent and just knock your knees together and just relax with the feet wider so you can go in the opposite direction. So choose a leg position, perhaps vary it each time you do this stretch. And then close your eyes and just become aware of your breathing. Maybe just feeling the rise and fall of your tummy as you breathe. The stretch sensation wants to be one that's bearable, that you can hold. And I'm just going to leave you here. Just maybe pause if you've got the time, just for a minute or two. Just have a quiet moment, just focus on your breathing. So goodbye from me, and I hope you enjoyed that session and you have found it useful.